samasta sugino bhavantu loga samasta sugino bhavantu loga samasta sugino bhavantu. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tasat. Namaste everyone. Welcome to our 76th anniversary of the United Nations. It is my great pleasure and honor to invite and welcome everybody to this 2-hour gathering, a celebration with the 2 panel discussions and great speakers, our Shri Ramu Damodaran ji and Ms. Hawa Diallo, and 2 of my friends, those who are moderating this event, that is Dr. Padmini Murthy ji and Reverend Dennis Cotto Esquire, and all the great speakers from different NGOs and committees. Welcome everyone. I'm so glad and happy to host this event. It's my great pleasure as a spiritualist, as a yogi, and an NGO representative. For me, now is a UN is like my second house, because I met all of you. That is my great blessing. I know when we do things together, the world will change through our activities, because I know all of you did a wonderful work for the community, global community, for decades. I had to appreciate what you did for humanity. Nothing more to say. I know we have wonderful speakers. They are going to explain what is UN, what is their experience. More than I have, they have experience. So I am a listener today. Here, I like to invite for I won't say prayer, invocation. Prayer is part of it. That is BK Gayatri Naraine from the Brahma Kumaris organization, one of the organization I work for a long time as a partnership organization. It's a great blessing and honor to invite her to do the prayer service. Gayatri, just looking.
Thank you, Dileepji. I'm very privileged and honored to be with you to do this brief invocation. The invocation today is an adaptation from Rabindranath Tagore, and it's dedicated to the United Nations community. So let us reflect on the profundity of timeless meaning captured in poetic language. When the mind is without fear and the head is held high, where knowledge is free, where the world has not been broken up into fragments by narrow domestic walls, where words come out from the depth of truth, where tireless striving stretches its arms toward transformation, where the clear streams of reason and conscience have not lost their way into the dreary desert sand of dead habit, where souls are led forward by thee into ever-widening thought and action, into that heaven of freedom, my mother, my father, Let all nations unite. Let we, the peoples, be not afraid of transcendence, silence. Let us be still and listen quietly to your thoughts, my mother, my father. Let us not be afraid to speak about what we see, what we hear, and what we feel from you. Let our hearts be in harmony with the rhythms of the sacred divine dance, the creation of sustenance and of transformation. But mostly, let the flames of our souls be threaded into a rosary of light and of love, of mutual respect. This is the season of lights. And during this season of light, let us focus, dilate the source, and create a canopy over the United Nations and our world. Om Shanti. Thank you.
Thank you, my dear sister Gayatri ji. I want to introduce her. She is one of the leading NGO leader at the UN from the Brahma Kumaris, main representative to the UN, and the vice chair for the International Yoga Day Committee at the UN. I am always happy. You are blessing us and supporting us in different ways. Appreciate it. Thank you. Now, there is an announcement to happen today because last some years, I'll say actually 25 years, we are putting events through UL Yoga community. Because of everybody's support we made, it became a part of the UNDGC NGO. Now, since the 1st of October, we became an NGO accredited to the United Nations Economic and Social Council with a special consultative status. That's a great announcement. I make it. Everything happened because of everybody, all of your support and blessings. Thank you, everyone. Now, our first moderator and my friend, Dr. Padmini Murthy, the first vice chair and the Global NGO Executive Committee member at the DGC and the NGO representative of American Medical Women's Association at the United Nations. Moreover, she is one of the senior advisors to the Valia community. Dr. Padmini Murthy, floor is for you. Please introduce our special guest.
Thank you so much, Dileepji. Welcome, everybody. Good evening, good afternoon, good night from wherever you are. And it gives me personally great pleasure. And on behalf of all the NGOs who have come here together on this auspicious day, because the UN has finished 75 years and it's the 76th birthday today of the United Nations. And as usual, we are very grateful to two of our very well-respected and dear UN colleagues and friends. The first is Ms. Hawa Diallo, who is Chief of the Civil Society at the Department of Global Communications. And Hawa has extensive UN headquarters and field experience. And, you know, the thing is, it was so hard for me as the moderator, as one of the moderators, to pick the salient pieces from people's bios, and it was not easy. So I beg forgiveness if I've left out something, you know, with keeping to time. Hawa is, what shall I say? To sum it up, Hawa in Hindi is wind. She's really like a whirlwind because she's always blowing good things, working with the NGOs and especially the youth. So Hawa, thank you so much for giving us your time on Sunday. And Hawa, wherever she goes, she really makes a mark. And as your NGO colleagues and friends, we are so thankful to you for always being so supportive of us. So Hawa, the floor is all yours. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Minnie. That's such a touching introduction. I'm such a sappy person. I'm already feeling emotional, and I haven't started yet. But namaste, everyone. Greetings to everybody in all your time zones. I'm really so happy. It's a pleasure to be here with you, speaking alongside such a great and esteemed panel. I'm really grateful for the opportunity to share this space with you and to tell you a bit about my experience working at the UN. I would like to thank the World Yoga Community for inviting me, and congratulations on getting consultative status to ECOSOC. But please know that your main home will always be the Department of Global Communications, because we love you so much and the work that you do. A special thank you to Guruji and to Minnie and to Denise Scotto for really reaching out to me on behalf of the committee. It's always a treat for me to be amongst this group, really the light that shines from all of you being so strongly, and always gives me a really warm feeling. I'm also very, very pleased to be with Ramu, my former boss, a longtime member of the UN family. Ramu, I'm internally indebted to you for your guidance, your friendship throughout the years that I've worked with you. I don't have to tell you about Ramu's passion and dedication to civil society and the work that you do. If you are a UN baby and you have all these affiliations and you stomp the UN grounds, you definitely have experienced the same love, passion, and guidance firsthand. Now, today, we're here to celebrate the 76th anniversary of the UN and to really reflect and commemorate the work of the organization and what it's done to improve the world, and the UN's commitment to continue doing so. Having been in the UN myself most of my adult life, and maybe it's even most of my young and adult life, UN Day really has a special meaning to me. When I was younger, I always laughed. My mom used to give us the basic facts about the UN for a birthday present. And I could never understand, oh my God, the basic facts about the UN. But, the UN, as we celebrate today, I'm thinking about all the achievements and just really thinking how it's always been part of my life and really in my backyard. I'll give you a funny story. When my first job interview for the UN was 2 weeks after I graduated from college. And I had been just watching TV. For those who grew up in America, obsessed with All My Children and General Hospital after finals. And my mom looked at me after 2 weeks and said, Miss Lady, I think you need to find a job. Somehow she had a connection to the United Nations and they were hiring for tour guides. And at that point, I had to go under my bed and fish out all the basic facts about the UN. And I was telling, some kids I spoke to last week that by the time I got to the UN for my interview, I could name all the secretary generals past and even predict the ones that were going to be coming in the years to come. So really, the UN has had a profound impact. The work I've done there, in my life, past, present, and I think really in terms of, where I'll find myself in the future. I actually, moved to the United States, to New York City at a very young age. Maybe I was, 4 or 5, with my family from Sierra Leone, where I'm originally from. My father had always been in politics and he had been appointed the ambassador of Sierra Leone to the UN. And honestly, sometimes when I think about it, or when I go into the UN, even after working at the UN for so many years, I see a picture of something where I find, my father at the UN, knowing that he spent so many of his days inside of this, iconic buildings on First Avenue, it really has always given me a strong purpose and a strong presence of the UN in my life. Once I got to the UN, I got that job as a tour guide. I mean, I was like, wow, I think I love this place. I think I like what it stands for. Then having to read the UN Charter, I mean, it's something that I believe in and will continue to believe in, the principles of the UN's work, the spirit of international cooperation, multilateralism, equality, diplomacy, the betterment of people's lives. I've always felt at home at the UN. I mentioned my first job at the UN was a tour guide, guiding people around the UN building. And this really meant a lot to me. It's like sort of walking the path of my own parents. Not only did this experience as a tour guide give me a close connection to the work, of my dad, but it also, gave me the opportunity to meet so many people, to engage with people coming from everywhere. When I was a tour guide, they had a slogan, come to the UN, visit the UN, the world is yours. And honestly, I've had the opportunity of, leaving First Avenue and traveling all around the world, without any plane ticket, and really getting to know people and their cultures in a very special way. As a tour guide, we had to work independently, intensely learn about the UN. We answered a lot of tough questions on what the UN is doing, what it needs to do. It's really one of the best experiences in my UN portfolio. And the friendships I made with the young people who are working as tour guides are the friendships I have throughout the United Nations, almost 35 years afterwards. I usually joke with the young people I work with. I said, you know what? I love the UN so much. I've been here so long. I'm always saying, oh, I'm going to do something else. I'm going to find some work. But I've been working in the UN longer than you guys have been alive. So it's a place, as I said, I really feel at home. Engaging with people, working with diverse group of guides from all corners of the earth. And that really actually has given me personally the skills and the tools, to help me communicate better with people. And I remember going on a peacekeeping mission to Somalia, and I was working in the spokesman's office, and I don't know what they were talking about. They wanted to do something about the Security Council. And then they were trying to explain to me about the 5 permanent members and the 10 non-permanent members. I'm like, no, I got this. The basic facts of the UN from under my bed, but also the experience of learning about the UN independently and creatively working to see how to communicate about the work of the UN. And really not only things like the Security Council, but the invisible work that goes unheard of in the economic and social fields, and having people really understand how close the UN is to them, and that the UN is more than a building. So for me, what led me to this organization, of course, is that personal connection. But again, as I say, that basic belief in the UN Charter, the principles of peace, human rights, economic and social development. For me, peace is at the core of what the UN does on every day throughout the world. And peace is at the center, of everything. We can't walk the talk on all the promises the UN makes, and fulfill the UN development agenda without having peace as a core. It's important, especially to mention this, because I think interfaith organizations such as yours in this space, the philosophy of life, the peaceful principles you have, in terms of yoga, meditation, it's synonymous to what the UN is. I mean, you work to build that gap between the UN and the communities that we serve. And the UN, I believe, recognizes the importance of partnering with you, with civil society, and to help advance the ideals and support of the work it's done for this 76 years. Minnie mentioned that last day we celebrated the 75th anniversary of the UN. That was fantastic. Many commitments have been made. We have our common agenda and the 12 principles and recommendations that have just come out. But in a sense, also, it was a time of chaos and peril. I mean, with the pandemic, COVID-19, it really hampered the way the UN worked and the way we're achieving the SDGs. But for me, what was more important is that it really thrust all of us into collective action. It gave an opportunity for us to think differently, to find new ways, to pivot to this virtual world and to continue doing the work that all of us are doing. Right now, all of us are slowly healing. Our communities are gradually recovering. So we as global citizens in the UN, outside, together, we have to be steadfast to ensure that collectively we continue to find solutions. And all these great ideas that we've come up with, that we ensure that they remain in place and continue to support people's lives around the world. I'm seeing so many NGO champions in the lineup today and in the space who we've collaborated with in the Department of Global Communications. And we hope that we continue to do so in the future with the same fire and energy and commitment that you have. Personally, for me, my commitment and fire, as Minnie has said, is making sure that we engage in the right way with civil society. We open the doors for you. We give access to you in the UN, and especially young people also. I think it's important for us, that all the voices are heard, especially young people in the UN corridors, in the UN rooms, that your ideas and expertise are seriously taken into consideration in the organization's decisions and work. I'm hopeful in everything that's coming out of the UN, that this collaboration and partnership will continue in a very strong and dynamic way. Now, before I leave you, I wanted to just mention a few things that are coming up that you definitely need to tune into. November 11th, we have our youth-led briefing. We have people like Ashu, who's in the space, that are helping us to create that briefing, youth-led, focusing on climate and gender equality. Something of interest to everybody around the screen is that we are working now with the Office of the President of the General Assembly, the 76th session, to have a town hall with civil society. The president has said he wants to share the stage with civil society. So we're hoping that you will respond to 2 calls we just put out. Actually, I think we're about to put them out next week. One is to have questions from you as civil society to the president of the GA. And the other one, which is really exciting, is that the PGA wants to have 5 civil society representatives, representing the regions, age, and thematic issues, who will talk on his 5 rays of hope. So please look out for those calls. And then finally, we have a town hall with the Global NGO Executive Committee, Minnie, Patrick, and some other people in that committee, to just really look back at what we've been doing and see how we can continue to strengthen the collaboration that we have from 2022 onwards. I also want to mention some great campaigns that I think you are probably already involved in, or you can spread the word about: the Verified campaign, fighting misinformation, and the Act Now campaign, which focuses on individual action on climate and sustainability. I personally subscribe to the Act Now. One of the things that I pledge to do is to turn off lights every time I leave a room. I tried to get my 16-year-old to also join me on this yesterday. So these are practical campaigns that you can either join in or share within your constituency. So for me, it's really been a pleasure and an honor to be here to talk with you and to share some of my personal experiences about my time at the UN. Today is a celebration. It's given me a chance to really look back and to kind of think. I've been sniffing because honestly, I'm a little bit emotional when I talk about the UN and just how much of a honor it's been for me to be in this space. And I'm at the point now in my career where, I'm contemplating, what do I want to do next? What's the path that I want to take, that I want to follow? So, thinking about UN Day really helps me to understand the great and positive impact the UN has had in my personal life and how I need to give back from those experiences. And quite honestly, I said, thanks to the UN, I've had the privilege to know the world, from New York to Cambodia to Somalia in my early years. I lived and worked in Nairobi for 11 years, had the opportunity with DGC to spent time in Korea, Senegal, and China, and then back to the Big Apple. And really being fortunate enough as a person to see the UN in action firsthand in the field, and meeting people who experience the UN in such a different way, this great organization, and really feeling the UN beyond conference rooms. And this is really what continues to motivate me and to inspire me to serve humanity. Again, I'm truly grateful. I'm sorry I'm getting emotional because it really means a lot to me to be here with you and to really experience what all of us are feeling under the UN flag. And I'm so excited. I can hardly wait to see what the UN and your NGOs will do in the coming years. And who knows, if I end up in civil society, I would be so excited to be welcomed into your community and to share that light, as I said, that all of you beam, externally and inwardly, actually, so strongly. Thank you so much for having me here, and happy UN Day. Over to you, Minnie. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hawa. I mean, that was so amazing. Thank you for starting off. And I think whether you're on that side of the boat or this side of the boat, as a UN person or an NGO, you're definitely going to be welcomed. And, and thank you so much for your passion and telling us the story of how you got involved in the UN. Thank you so much. The next guest we have is Michelle Delafave. And for those of you who have not heard Michelle, she looks like an angel and sings like one. So Michelle, we are all looking forward to your beautiful musical interlude. Over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Happy UN Day. And thank you, Guruji and Mini and Denise for having me here. I'm honored. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be with God as creator. Family all are we. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be the moment now. To take each moment and live each moment in peace and harmony.
Michelle, that I don't know what to say. Words fail me. You were fantastic, and thank you so much. And that was such a lovely what compliment to Hawa's touching remarks. So Hawa set the tone, you made the music. And now coming
Thank
on, it is my honor and privilege to introduce Shri Ramu Damodaran, whom so many of us know as a respected UN colleague, but a dear friend. And Ramu has served as the Deputy Director for Partnerships and Public Engagement in the UN Department of Public Information's Outreach Division. And he was the chief of the United Nations Academic Impact. And he has really created something which is amazing, a great platform for students and educators, where there are over 1,400 universities at present worldwide who belong to this amazing network, which was conceptualized and worked on with Ramu at the helm of a great team, but they had a great captain. The other thing is, Ramu is a brilliant orator, and I always enjoy moderating, but if I'm moderating Ramu, I get a little stressed out because he's one of the best. I always try to do justice to so that he is represented well as with our other speakers. And he has been a stage actor. The other thing is Mr. Damodaran has been a diplomat before he started working in the United Nations. And I would just like all of us to wish him and so many other diplomats, because today is also International Diplomatic Day. I believe it's the 5th anniversary for everything you do, because you are like really soldiers, soldiers, physicians, diplomats. There's no sleep because you're always ready to go at the slightest signal. So thank you again. And we really appreciate your time for giving us the keynote. So it's over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Minnie. You're always a hard act to follow, and particularly so today. I'm very grateful for your reference to the International Day of Diplomats, which was conceived a few years ago by a fellow member of the Indian Foreign Service, Abhay Kumar, and I think it has really taken international currency and is so relevant to what we're talking about today. We really started this program on a wonderful note. Just before you introduced me, Minnie, we had Michelle, and that refrain of "Let peace on earth begin with me." To translate the conceptual into the first person, to take responsibility for it, and also to cherish the possibility, as she so movingly sang. Hawa is an old, young, trusted, and cherished friend. You mentioned, Minnie, that her name in Hindi or in Sanskrit means wind, but it also means in Hebrew, and you've all been familiar with the phrase Hawa Nagila, it means let us rejoice. And that is something I think we should do today, as you in the world yoga community, under the guidance of Guru Dileepji, summon us together on the 676th UN Day. Because in many ways, it's a day of anguish and despair, as Hawa put it so eloquently. But also it's a time to rejoice because we now have 24 years ahead of us before we come to the centenary of the United Nations. And it's important for us to try and conceptualize how the great strides we have made in the last 2 years in addressing and in many ways substantially defeating the pandemic have brought together public health professionals like Minnie, brought together thinkers and religious leaders like Guru Dileepji, brought together lawyers and advocates like Denise, and above all, this vibrant community of global civil society, which all of you represent. When Gayatri ji began our program today with a quotation of the hymn, if you will, of Rabindranath Tagore, and that wonderful phrase about "into that heaven of freedom, let my country awake," I thought back to a phrase which has often been misattributed to Dag Hammarskjöld, but was actually first said by Winston Churchill, that the United Nations was not designed to deliver us unto heaven, but to save us from hell. In many ways, I'm glad it was not Hammarskjöld who said this, because I don't think Hammarskjöld would have had that degree of pessimism and skepticism, which unfortunately a man like Winston Churchill was distinguished by. Because it is still possible for us, through the organization, to reach that heaven of freedom, in the words of Tagore, so beautifully recited by Gayatri. Because that was really the premise 76 years ago. A freedom from every form of violence or devastation that would compromise the dignity and worth of the human person, be it war, be it development, whatever you choose to call it. Yes, heaven is relative, and with the United Nations, heaven is possible. Hawa mentioned the Our Common Agenda report of Secretary General Guterres. And I would like to draw upon that to suggest to you in my remarks the 7 principal areas which we as a global community, in our individual professions and our collective solidarity, can pursue over the next 24 years as we reach the UN centennial. The United Nations was designed to both manage global goods and global risks, the pandemic being the most recent global risk. But global goods continue to be areas which no nation has an absolute monopoly upon. Climate change is a clear specific in that. And when we think about these global goods, we need to think about what Secretary General Guterres has called a networked multilateralism. Not only a multilateralism among governments and nations, but among the skill and talent that each one of those nations possess. Be it scientists, be it entrepreneurs, be it yoga practitioners. When the Paris Agreement was signed in 2015, India, the home of yoga, took the initiative to create an international solar alliance to really harvest the benefits of renewable solar energy. And I still recall the words of the French president at that time, President François Hollande, who said, "The International Solar Alliance is a fine idea from a country where for millennia, yoga practitioners have greeted the sun every morning so that it shares its energy with the earth." Sharing the energy with the earth. That is what the ISA tried to do. The second is really to anticipate the Sustainable Development Portfolio beyond the year 2030, which is its current definition. That again will call on your imagination. And I think, and I'm so glad, Guruji, that you have invited our stellar youth representatives today, because I was thinking of something that Monica Singh, whom we're going to hear from later, once said, when she said her personal advice to all women who have been affected by violence in life is not to stay stuck in the past, but to find a different way forward. And that is true of the United Nations itself. We cannot afford to be stuck in the past of our lack of success or our failures, but we have to get out of being stuck and create a future that is worthy of our organization. Anticipating sustainable development, when we think of that, we also need to factor in the enormous amount of resources that we will need. My young friend, Rinor Jani, has estimated that it's approximately $138,000 per minute that the world spends on armaments, money which is being diverted from sustainable development. So that is the second challenge before 2045. The third is the idea of a new agenda, if you will, for peace and security, an agenda which builds upon the most human of traits, your faith, your religion. Isaac Thomas is a global youth movement leader and working with the United Religions Initiative, who has spoken of the idea of peace multipliers. To go back to Michelle's song, when you say, "Let peace begin with me," can each of us be that multiplier? And think also, if you will, to the idea of a digital technology for global good, addressing challenges of artificial intelligence, of drones, all of which we've seen, and trying to make sure that the world is equipped to handle these in 2045. Outer space, ensuring that it is not misused for military purposes, and we can harvest the benefits from it. And then the idea of a global emergency platform, which we really would have needed, or which we realized we had missed at the time of the pandemic. And then finally, the most important for our conversation today, the idea of going back to the UN Charter and talking about succeeding generations and future generations. As Hawa said so eloquently, there are people in our gathering today who were not born when Shri joined the United Nations, and certainly even more so from the time I joined the United Nations. But Johanna Schwartz once quoted a statesman from Europe saying that we owe it to our younger generation to protect them from climate change, just as they accepted the lockdown during COVID to protect the older generation. And also, as Aishwarya, whom we're also going to hear from later, once remarked, we need, in addition to the group of 20, the Y20, younger nations who get together and provide a platform for young people to infuse the ideas of their global leadership. So in every respect, you have that idea of channels which the United Nations can address over the next 24 years with that networked multilateralism, which will bring each one of you into its fold. Before I conclude, I would like to take the liberty and your time to share two personal thoughts with you. Today, the 24th of October, also happens to be the 86th birth anniversary of a very cherished aunt of mine. She was 10 years old when the United Nations came to being and always told me how excited she was to read the headline. She did a book on the great masters of Indian music and begins with a story from the Puranas in India, where the king asked a sage to teach him the craft of image making. The sage said, if you do not understand the laws of painting, you can never understand the laws of image making. So the king said, be good enough, O sage, to teach me the laws of painting. The sage said, look, it's difficult to understand the laws of painting without a knowledge of the laws of dancing. The king said, kindly instruct me then on the art of dancing. And the sage said, this is difficult to understand without a thorough knowledge of instrumental music. And the king said, teach me then the laws of instrumental music. The sage said, but the laws of instrumental music cannot be taught or learnt without a deep knowledge of the art of vocal music. And the king bowed in reverence and said, if vocal music be the source of all arts, then reveal to me the laws of vocal music. I share that with you because the United Nations is ultimately a home of vocal music, where nations come and speak, suggest, yes, occasionally argue, but where their voices are amplified in a collective unison. That collective unison, which does not admit of any of the minute differences that disunite us, but gather us together in common cause. And the last thought I would like to leave you with is from this wonderful book called The Global Glorious Ganesh, which Minnie has put together, and where she talks about the Ganesh temple in our home city of New York, whose logo is unusually significant as it depicts the traditional Deepam, the light, surrounded by the insignias of the major world religions, including the Om at the top. That is what we have learned in 76 years. There is so much more that deliberately and creatively unites us than the little that divides us. And just as yoga allows us to realize that unity within ourselves, within our breath and our being, within our mind and our soul, within our body, and the peace that it can bring to this earth, so too can the United Nations be precisely what its name was meant to be. Nations, yes, but always united. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was fantastic. And I think the new rock star in the 76th year of the United Nations is Shri Ramu Damodaran for his resounding speech. And, thank you so much for giving a shout out to all the youth. I'm sure it means a lot to them that they are in the company of stalwarts like yourself and Hawa. Thank you so much. We can't thank you enough. And, we are so happy that you are now a part of the NGO community. So thank you so much. And now we will move on to our first panel. And it gives me great pleasure to introduce our panelists who are NGO leaders. And the other thing I just want to say today, ladies, gentlemen, and esteemed guests, and of course our youth who are our torch bearers, that all our speakers today bring so much to the table, and they have received so many accolades. And unfortunately, we cannot list every accolade each person has received, but just to say that they bring so much to the table. And the beauty of these programs is, one of the things about COVID is that you are able to connect virtually and with a wider audience. And just to, one thing I wanted to say before we start the panel is, Ramu, you talked about drones, and drones are now being used, and you explained multilateralism so well, only just as you could. The drones are being used to deliver COVID vaccines in remote areas too, in global partnerships. So it is SDG 3 and SDG 17 coming together to spread the message of multilateralism. Thank you again for your remarks. I mean, you are truly inspiring, and you always have been. So our panelists, we have Ginger, that's Dr. Stillman, who's the Vice President of Local Chapter Development of the UNA USA. Ginger has been a passionate advocate of working on social determinants issues concerning women and children. And thank you. And she's a mover and a shaker. I've had the privilege of working with her for so many years and calling her a friend. And thank you, Ginger, for your time. Next we have, and I'm sure our two gentlemen guests, Hero and Levy, will not mind if I introduce our ladies first. Not playing any favorites here, but I'm just going in the order of how I got the bios. Yvonne O'Neill, advocates for social justices around the world. And she represents Africa Development Interchange Network. And again, Yvonne is, I would say, a sister from another mother. And she is so passionate about violence against women and human trafficking. And she has been a founding member in the Diocese of New York of the Task Force Against Human Trafficking. Thank you again, Yvonne, for your time on Sunday. Hiro Sakurai has been serving as the Director of the Office for UN Affairs at the Soga Gaki since 2015. And he's also, for those of you who don't know, Hiro has been working on several non-formal educational projects, including the production of an environmental education film, A Quiet Revolution, exhibitions and lectures, and also worked on a youth nonviolence initiative, the Victory Over Violence. Levy, last but not least in any way. Levy, those of us who have known him, Dr. Levy Bautista, is Assistant Secretary General for the United Nations and International Affairs of the General Board of Church and Society. Levy has traveled to over 70 countries. He teaches, he writes, he lectures extensively in a variety of fields, and has written some really thought-provoking books which make you think as to what is really important. And he seamlessly blended religion, lecture, ethics, politics, and international affairs around the world. So thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. And we really appreciate your being here. So the panel for you, dear audience, is each of our speakers has 2 questions, and they will be asked the questions in order. And after that, and the way I will go, I will ask Ginger first, followed by Levi, and then I will ask Ivan, followed by Hero, and then the order will be reversed for the second question. Thank you so much. So if Ginger, my first question to you is, as a long-standing NGO leader in the UN system, can you briefly describe your work and experience in relation to the principles and mission as outlined in the UN Charter 75 years ago? Thank you, Ginger. Over to you.
Emphasize the principles of the UN Charter that focus on international cooperation for solving economic, social, cultural, or humanitarian problems, and promoting and encouraging respect for human rights without distinction as to race, sex, language, or religion. This holds as much true today as it did when I began some 40 years ago. Since my undergraduate studies at the School of International Service of the American University, I've admired and supported the work of the UN. I followed with a master's degree in doctoral studies in public health, specializing in international health. While working on my first international assignment, organizing training for rural midwives in Togo, West Africa, I became familiar with the smallpox eradication program and with WHO and its partners. Later, I worked as a consultant with the UN High Commission for Refugees in Pakistan, and with the UN Population Fund in Lesotho, and with other UN agencies. I also worked with NGOs and universities in Tunisia, Nigeria, Cameroon, Tanzania, and many other countries. My husband, David Stillman, had a 30-year career with the UN, and I kept up with the work of the UN during that time. I suppose that's all for that question.
Thank you so much, Ginger. Now, Levi, I would like to ask you the same question. As a longstanding NGO leader in the UN system, can you briefly describe your work and experience in relation to the principles and mission as outlined in the UN Charter? Thank you so much, Levi.
Thank you very much, Mini, and thank you, Guruji, and the World Yoga community and the sponsors and collaborators of this important event. Hawa and Ramu, you are hard acts to follow. You already gave us a full helping of, it's a sustenance in words and a full and generous serving of deeds that you have given examples of. In 1946, the British Methodist Church hosted the first General Assembly of the United Nations. And so you may ask, why is the United Methodist Church involved at the United Nations at all? Well, the first General Assembly was hosted by the Methodist Church at the Methodist Central Hall in London. And in 1963, we built the Church Center for the United Nations. In 1997, I became the representative of the United Methodist Church, Church and Society worldwide, and that's been 25 years hence. And in between, I have been the president of the Conference of NGOs in Consultative Relationship with the United Nations. That was between 2008 and 11, and then currently, again, it's president between 2018 until November this year, when the next General Assembly comes. I very much like the title of the event that you're holding, Revisiting the Past, Defining the Present, Shaping the Future. When I was an elementary school student and a high school student in the Philippines, United Nations Day has always been important. I donned God knows how many costumes of countries that I've chosen, 6 years in elementary and 4 years in high school. In 1979, my first demonstration was in front of the UNCTAD meeting in Manila. Many years later, perhaps about 39 or 42 years later, who would know that I would land a job related to the United Nations. In college, my office in Manila was 700 United Nations Plaza. In 1997, my office in New York is 777 United Nations Plaza. Who would have known that between my college years and my professional life, the United Nations was there. And so, my work as a human rights activist during the Marcos dictatorship in the Philippines shaped how I looked at multilateralism, how I looked at the United Nations. And so the kind of work that I have been from my youth and my college years as a human rights activist continue on today. And it is important to raise those, because then I hope in the second round, I'll be able to speak of my advocacy for an economics of sustainability and equity, and translate that into a calling for food on one hand and freedom on the other. My advocacy for politics of empowerment and liberation. Put in another word, in another term, it's a calling for jobs and justice. And lastly, a culture of solidarity and advocacy, and put in other terms, for land and liberty. You will have seen my choice of those words: food and freedom, jobs and justice, land and liberty. It's a combination of the civil and political rights on one hand, and economic, social, and cultural rights in words that translate on the ground. So thank you very much, Minnie.
Thank you, Levi. That was so eloquently put as usual. I mean, those of us who know you for so long know that you will not do anything less than that by getting the message across clearly, diplomatically, but at the same time forcefully, so that we start thinking. Thank you so much. Now, Yvonne, the same question to you. As a longstanding NGO leader in the UN system, can you describe your work and experience in relation to the principles and mission as outlined in the UN Charter? Thank you, Yvonne.
Well, thank you, Minnie. It's such an honor to be asked to be a part of this illustrious panel this afternoon. My work at the UN has been as completely as a volunteer. I first came to the UN representing the Anglican Consultative Council. And since 2014, I'm proud to represent Africa Development Interchange Network, which is an ECOSOC accredited NGO headquartered in Cameroon. And its mandate is to facilitate the engagement of people in the global South at the United Nations. I just want to highlight, I've been involved with many NGO committees at the UN. So I want to highlight my work on two of them, the NGO Committee on the Status of Women and the NGO Committee on Financing for Development. Now, before the pandemic, the CSW would gather thousands of women around the world to come to New York for the annual Commission on the Status of Women. And the work of NGO CSW is to hold consultation day to help acclimate the women to what will be happening at the Commission on the Status of Women, and to also be a forum for the parallel events that take place during the proceedings of CSW 2 weeks every year. But because of the pandemic, now NGO CSW can engage more women on a monthly basis during our meetings, as well as having a virtual forum during CSW. I have been a member at large on the executive committee of NGO CSW, starting with Susan O'Malley's second term and Huri Gedelekin's, the current chair's first term. And one of the jobs that I have had at NGO CSW is to be the editor of the handbook, which is produced during CSW, which gives lots of information for women to have. And it really provides great information on such topics as CEDAW, the Security Council Resolution 1325 on peace and security, as well as the Beijing Platform for Action, and just last year on generation equality. Now, under my leadership, one of the visions I have had was to have messages in the handbook from the CSW chair, from the Executive Director of UN Women and the Director of the Civil Society Platform at UN Women. My time is running out and I haven't even touched on what I do to talk about financing for development, but I actually have been very much involved in financing for development at the United Nations, and I'm putting together a webinar which will be taking place actually next Friday, the first Friday in November, and we will be looking at revisiting the issues of financing for development. And I wish I had more time to talk about that, but maybe I will in my next intervention because I've passed my 3 minutes time. Thank you.
Thank you, Yvonne. I didn't cut you off because I know you were like telling us so eloquently what you were doing. So that's why, otherwise I would go like, Yvonne, your time is up. But you know what? I was being diplomatic here. It's UN Day.
Well, thank you.
Now, Hero, thank you so much for your time. And again, as a longstanding NGO leader in the UN system, can you briefly describe your work and experience in relation to the principles, mission as outlined in the UN Charter? And thank you so much for always willing to join us when we ask you. Much appreciated.
Thank you always inviting me. And I'd like to thank Minnie, Denise, Guruji, and the team for bringing us all together on important occasions. One central mission of the UN as it came into being following World War II is the maintenance of international peace and security. The UN works on many issues for that, such as peacekeeping, but what my organization has been most actively involved is disarmament, particularly the elimination of nuclear weapons. So I'd like to share my experience about that a little bit. So the very first resolution adopted by the General Assembly back in 1946 was about nuclear disarmament, which shows the UN's long-standing commitment. However, much progress hasn't been made for decades. So hard security issues, which are constantly affected by the world's political climate. So I started my NGO work in 1997 and have been involved in disarmament work for instance, having served as the chair of the NGO Committee on Disarmament, Peace and Security. But for years, we didn't see major progress until in 2010, when the outcome of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty Review Conference included the recognition of catastrophic humanitarian consequences any nuclear weapon detonation would entail, which probably has long been obvious to everyone anyway, but finally recognized officially and intergovernmentally. And we didn't see any much progress until humanitarian impact of nuclear weapons conferences generated more momentum among the governments who are supporting the humanitarian initiative and NGOs, including the International Campaign to abolish nuclear weapons, ICAN. And also until July 7th, 2017, so triple lucky sevens, when the UN adopted a landmark agreement to ban nuclear weapons, known officially as the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, TPNW. And on the United Nations Day last year, Honduras ratified the treaty, which reached the 50 ratifications, the minimum number required for the treaty to enter into force. And on January 22nd this year, TPNW took effect. So this was a historic milestone, since prior to that, nuclear weapons were the only weapons of mass destruction not banned under international law. This achievement was also quite symbolic, as nuclear disarmament negotiations have long been dominated by men compared to other areas. But when the TPNW was adopted, it was chaired by Ambassador Elaine White of Costa Rica, and the High Representative for Disarmament Affairs was Izumi Nakamitsu, serving as the Secretariat. And also ICAN received the Nobel Peace Prize in the same year, 2017, and it was co-received by Beatrice Finn, ICANN Executive Director, and Setsuko Thorough, an atomic bomb survivor of Hiroshima. So these 4 women played key roles in this important history. And how was my organization, SGI, involved in this process? As an organization originally founded as an educators group back in 1930, we have been placing education high on our agenda. So we worked to ensure that disarmament education was included as a positive obligation in the treaty, so that we can encourage the governments to not only agree and support the treaty, but actively promote it. And this was made possible by collaboration among the NGOs and working with the like-minded governments who pushed the agenda forward, and it was kept in the treaty. So what we found most helpful was that since education is a priority for SGI across the issue areas, we are able to bring together various experiences and learnings from different issue areas such as human rights education, peace education, and education for sustainable development to inspire ideas. It was quite helpful.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Hiro. Next, as we go on to our second round, ladies and gentlemen, because we have another panel, we have youth. Could I please request you to kindly keep your remarks very brief? Because one of the things about being a moderator, you also have to be the timekeeper. Thank you so much. So now, because it's the reverse order, I'm going to start with you, Hiro. Surprise, surprise, you didn't know you were the first person to answer my second question. So very quickly, please, in 70 seconds, not more, what do you think the NGO community can collectively do to increase the NGO presence, including active participation across the UN? Thank you.
Yes, so kind of continuing to what I said, what I ended it with, NGOs collaborate, but we do most actively within the same issue areas and do not necessarily go beyond. In that regard, I find an important role and potential in Congo, the Conference of NGOs in Consultative Relationship with the UN that Levi mentioned. Some of you know, Congo has substantive committees that work on various issues like gender, social development, and so on, and bring a variety of experiences and learnings back to Congo, which I believe is a key to advancing the work of the entire NGO community. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now, Yvonne, my friend, you have 70 seconds, not 70 minutes. So what do you think the NGO community can collectively do to increase NGO presence, including active participation across the UN? Basically, we have a shrinking space. So what do you think we can do? Thank you.
Well, we do have a shrinking space, but I am heartened by the call of the Secretary General to have more civil society participation, the call of the new Executive Director of UN Women to have more civil society participation. So I think that we need to heed that call. And there have been times when I have been at meetings that the UN has opened up to civil society, and you look around up in the gallery where we sit, and it's empty. So I think that we need to take advantage of the fact that when the UN invites us, that we show up. Also, I think one of the ways to engage is to actually have mission visits, go and meet the ambassadors and the folks at the missions so that we can work collaboratively. Because next week when I have that panel, I have invited an ambassador, and I'm hopeful that she will be present. And that's a way for us to engage more and get to know each other and know that we're all on the same page, working to make this world a better place.
Yvonne, for your very clear message. Now, going over to you, Ginger, sorry, Levi. So what do you think, again, in 70 seconds, the NGO community can collectively do to increase the NGO presence, especially coming from you, because you have been at the helm of Congo, and we thank you for your leadership. We thank everybody, but especially you, Levi, because you have made sure that there is NGO participation. And just a big shout out, I think Levi has posted that in the chat, that there is a major summit. If you can, please sign in. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minnie. In 10 seconds first, I would say that NGO leaders should help in the reduction of what is currently a surplus of fear and increase what currently is a deficit of hope. So we must increase hope, we must decrease fear. In the governance structures of the multilateral system, we must make sure that NGO voice and agency is enhanced and made present. And therefore, there has to be a sense of purpose in a setting of collaboration. There has to be a passion among us for a cause where collaboration and cooperation is key. There should be the centrality of human rights and human dignity, that no matter how hostile the environment in the multilateral system, in the national settings, and among us, even in the grassroots level, we will stay the course, because multilateralism is key to solving not just the pandemics that is COVID, but the health pandemics, the pandemic of violence and war, the pandemics of poverty and hunger, the pandemics of racism and xenophobia, and so much more. So you, in your own personal capacity, and in the words of Ramu, if I may repeat that, Ramu, a network multilateralism that is beyond the nation states, but you, we the peoples. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your right on target. Do you practice shooting? Because your message was right on target. Thank you. Over to
Even
you.
now, we're reducing the fear factor, so nothing about shooting here.
No, by shooting is not with a gun. By speaking, your aim was correct. I was punning on it. Thank you. Ginger, thank you so much. Last but not least, how do you think the NGO community can collectively, and what can we do to increase NGO presence, especially with your long-standing role with the UNA USA in a leadership role? Can you please tell us briefly in 70 seconds? Thank you.
I will try. The UN Association of USA, which is just part of the international world group of UNAs across the world, where I volunteer, is a movement of Americans who believe that our interests and values can best be advanced by standing with the planet's only true universal institution, the United Nations. We stand up for the UN, so the UN can keep standing up for the world. Our methods can be expanded or replicated by others. They include reaching out to other NGOs in the community to hold events and support advocacy positions, to develop partnerships and focus on the SDGs that resonate with other NGOs and the community. We also focus on youth and young professionals in creating chapters in high schools, colleges, and universities. All of these are important for developing a strong NGO sector in the future. The other NGO with which I'm engaged, the Public-Private Alliance Foundation, works in Haiti, Madagascar, and the DR. It participates in UN events such as the NGO conferences and the high-level political forum, and with its partners emphasizes the SDGs. The current work focuses on solar energy and biogas, two renewable resource methods that relate to many SDGs. So in a sense, we bring positive awareness about the UN, and we assist other NGOs to get involved. Okay? Is that my 70?
Yes, thank you so much. So thank you for conveying that partnerships are crucial at all levels, and also educating people in the US about why we need UN. So I think, thank you so much, panelists. This has been amazing. And, thank you so much for your time, not only your time, but your commitment in doing what we all believe in. That's why we are here. And again, thank you to Dileepji for putting this together and all the sponsoring organizers. And now, before I turn it on to my partner in crime, Denise Carter, I can say that she's an attorney and I can call her my partner in crime, a longstanding friend and respected colleague. We do have a musical interlude now. So over to you, Dileepji. Thank you.
Thank you, Ji. Thank you, Ji. That was a beautiful panel. I enjoyed it. And my friends, Hero and Levi, Ivan, and Jean, my new friend, beautifully you share your thoughts and wisdom. I want to thank from my bottom of my heart, Dr. Padmini Murthy, leading this wonderful panel. Now, I like to invite my friend from Japan. That is Maika Primavera. She is the coordinator for the Inamori Art Project Group, and she is going to bless us with a beautiful music dance act. Inamori, ready. Maika, floor is for it.
Thank you, Guruji. Thank you so much. And thank you all the amazing panelists and all the co-sponsoring NGOs and committees. Greeting from Japan to all of you. It's a great pleasure and honor to be part of this celebration for the 76th anniversary of the United Nations. And we'd like to express our deepest gratitude for all of you here for your amazing work with the UN to create global peace and unity. Thank you so much. We are Inamori Art Project Group from Japan. We are a volunteer art group delivering our message of love and peace through our music, dance, drama, Japanese taiko drums, and paintings. And in partnership with the other group in US, we are promoting the message of unity and unification to the world. So you can see more details on our website. I will put the link on the chat. So today, we'd like to offer a song expressing our idea of unification. So I hope you enjoy. Thank you.
The new era is coming. Let's be unified.
Unification for realization. It's in your heart, but you need your guts. Unification for realization. Not for a king, but for us to do. Over the differences, let's be always go with love and gratitude. Just sharing, making all our life forgiveness is all we need for unification, harmonization. God's flowers in the garden of love. Unification, God's aspiration. Heavenly horns are sounding now. No more religions, no more nations. All we need is love. Flowers of this world, children of God, we are the start. Love, where there's us. Unification for realization. It's in your heart, but you need your guts. Unification, harmonization. Let's sound into space. In a soul, with a shouting all times. Memories of the past, honor the trash now. Never give up. Make your dreams and ideas come true. Unification for real.
you so much.
Now I feel
Thank
like
you.
we are actually uniting
Yes, we are
with
already united.
harmonious
Thank you.
music and dance. I'm glad you joined. I know the midnight, right? In Japan?
Yes,
Thank
it's the
you for,
4:30 a.m.
oh my God.
We are limited. My
So
pleasure. Thank you.
say thank you to everyone in your group, okay? So I want to call Dr. Padmini Murthy back to the.
Thank you so much. That was amazing. We enjoyed, I mean, Michelle's music, Ramu's rock star remarks, Hawa's, heartfelt remarks, and our dynamic panel. What more can we ask for? And thank you so much. You really are the land of the midnight sun, right? Because the sun is not setting in Japan. You're still awake. Thank you so much. We really appreciate that. Now, moving on, I would like to invite my friend and esteemed colleague, Denise Carter, and as I said, my partner in crime, to take it away that with the youth panel. Over to you, Denise. Thank you again.
Thanks, Minnie. Happy UN Day, everyone. We've had such a rich sharing. We've had so many people here today give their expertise, speaking from the heart and really sharing their wisdom. And you know, it's getting even better and better because we have a panel of so many viewpoints from around the world where we have such experience and wisdom from our younger leaders. We're not here with leaders for the future. We are here with leaders for today. We have leaders who are leading the way through their example, through their actions, and through the way that they're joining together in partnership. So I would like to introduce people today first before we get into our specific question. And I'm going to share their bios, and then we'll get into the question. So we have with us today Aishu, who is a dear friend, and her full name is Aishwara Narasimharadevara. Now, I'm sorry I'm massacring that. I'm giving it my best. So that's why we love to say Aishu for many reasons. Aishu has been a member of the UN Department of Global Communications Civil Society Youth Representative Steering Committee, and she's a youth representative of the World Yoga Community, and as we know, is now both a DGC and an ECOSOC accredited NGO. She's been involved with various non-governmental organizations working in the field of education, the environment, and culture. She's earning her PhD in international development from Chulalongkorn University and Bangkok, Thailand. Joining us from Doha, Qatar today is Isaac Thomas. I am so happy that he is joining us. I know him through the United Religions Initiative, which is an accredited NGO. Isaac is, at the age of 23, the youngest Global Council trustee of the URI. He joined the organization when he was 13, and since that time, he was involved in a variety of the pressing issues that face our world today. But at the same time, he's been involved in the leadership of the URI cooperation circles. So I am so happy that he's joining us and agreed to come from Doha to be with us today. He works there as a network engineer. Someone who many of us know through our mutual work at the UN is another dear friend, Monica Singh. Monica is an international influencer, a motivational speaker, a social impact activist, a businesswoman, a fashion designer. She's spoken at the UN in New York headquarters and is a well-known advocate for women on the topic of violence against women. However, she's also the founder and the leader of the Mahendra Singh Foundation, which does a lot of incredibly wonderful work. Johanna Schwartz is a German climate and clean technologies activist with 8+ years in international politics. She also served on the Youth Steering Committee of the UN Department of Global Communications. She's been involved as a German youth delegate to the pre-COP26 in Milan and in the European Commission's think tank on youth participation. In August, she started her MPA at the Harvard Kennedy School, focusing on the design of effective climate policy at the nexus of technology innovation. And last but not least, we have another friend who is currently serving as a representative of the UN-accredited NGO Pathways to Peace. And he's part of the UN Department of Global Communications Youth Steering Committee. He actively works on migrant and refugee rights and on nuclear disarmament advocacy for the Balkan region. He's currently pursuing a bachelor's degree specializing in human rights at Columbia University here in New York City. So I am so happy that we have this esteemed group with us today and that we are able to hear from them. And since we know that this panel is really talking about partnerships and the way forward, the question that I pose to each and every one of them is, how do you see successful partnerships with the United Nations in the next 5 years? So again, because we have a short period of time today, they only have 3 minutes each. So I'm going to start with our first youth panelist, Aishu. Aishu, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Denise, and you pronounced my name absolutely correctly. So I appreciate that, and I, of course. So greetings, everyone, and fellow youth, fellow global advocates. As Denise mentioned, my name is Aishwarya Narasimha-Devra, and I am a youth representative for World Yoga Community. Now, as we know, and as we have heard from all of our esteemed speakers, the United Nations is comprised of various actors whose aim is to create a better world. Personally, I believe that partnerships in the UN system will become stronger and inclusive, ensuring that all perspectives are taken into consideration. From my experiences, I've seen the outreach of the UN increase through consultations, collaborations at the grassroots levels, and participation in high-level meetings and dialogues, which Hawa alluded to earlier. Now, personally, through the DGC, along with other colleagues, as mentioned, I've had the opportunity to join some of these high-level dialogues, including in the general debate during the General Assembly, and organizing events through the Youth Representatives Program. And now the Youth Steering Committee falls under the realm of the Youth Representatives Program. I would like to personally convey my gratitude for having the opportunity to be a civil society member involved through these various youth engagement platforms affiliated to the United Nations. Now, most of my engagement has been with DGC, but I've also had the chance to, along with Monica, in fact, that's how we met, through the Working Group on Gender Equality, which is affiliated with UN Women. Now, the reason why I wanted to drop on some experiences is to share my optimism why I believe these partnerships will get stronger. Now, I have seen from the time I've started, definitely there's been more of an outreach, more of that willingness to have youth perspectives taken into consideration. Now, one example includes the creation of the first Youth Commission on the Status of Women event, also known as Youth CSW, in March 2016, which Monica also, I know, had the pleasure of partaking in it. Another example I would like to highlight is the first youth outcome document, which Johanna and I had the chance to work at the Italian restaurant in Gyeongju in South Korea in 2016 from the DGC Civil Society Conference, also previously known as the DPI NGO Conference. Now, these have actually been some milestones which I've had the chance to personally partake in, where you are seeing that increased youth presence within the UN space. Now, of course, partnerships are not only limited to youth advocacy increasing, but just sharing coming from this angle to add to the conversation. Now, I definitely also would like to make note of some of the other achievements that the UN has made in terms of increasing the partnerships with various actors. Now, that's World Youth Skills Day, which was formed in 2014, and the first one was I believe, celebrated in 2015, along with the permission of Sri Lanka to the United Nations. So hence here again, you have collaboration with civil society, UN agencies, and member states, and also the Secretary General's Envoy on Youth, which was founded, I believe, in 2013. And we now have, of course, the current youth envoy, Ms. Jayatma Vikramanayake from Sri Lanka, who has really been using various platforms, especially in social media, to really reach out to youth, especially in some of these marginalized communities. And as we know, even though internet connection, of course, poses a challenge, many youth do have access to the internet through their mobile phones, which has really helped to accelerate. So use of Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, I must have really impressed by the use of the TikTok videos that have been put on various UN platforms. And as Hawa mentioned, the town hall with the president of the General Assembly, definitely showing that increase in the strength of partnerships. And to sum it up, as we know, in the future, there will be the creation of a UN Youth Office, which was announced by Secretary General Guterres during the General Assembly, and most certainly looking forward to hearing how that develops. And I personally believe that the United Nations will continue to work with individuals in all sectors by increasing opportunities for people to share their perspectives. It will seek to emphasize that everybody is part of the solution. I always like one phrase that Hawa uses, yes, is how we can get the UN out there. And Denise, I pass it over back to you. Apologies for—
Thank you, Aishu. Thank you, Aishu. I appreciate you talking about your experience. We do have other panelists, so I'm going to ask them if they really can keep it to 3 minutes, because we don't have a lot of time. We're ending today at 4 o'clock, or at least that is the aim for us to end it for. And we would really like to find ways in terms of how we can move forward. So how do we see, or how do you panelists see, successful partnerships with the UN in the next 5 years? So you all have had a lot of wonderful experience, as you've heard from Aishu, all of the incredible different projects and the initiatives that she's been able to be involved in with some of our other speakers on the panel today. And we're trying to build on what's been happening. What have we done successfully? So how can we even be more successful in moving forward? So I'm going to turn next to our second speaker for his perspective. So Isaac Thomas, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you. Am I audible? All good?
We could hear you. Yep.
Thank you. Yes, good. So thank you, dear Denise, for your kind words of introduction. First of all, the energy I feel here, it's really amazing. And after a whole day of work, when we come back and celebrate and rejoice in this, especially United Nations Day, it is truly inspiring. The knowledge transfer. It is my honor and privilege to be part of this. Especially with such esteemed guests. An opportunity to listen to my fellow speakers and to share my views as well. This is an auspicious occasion, where we are celebrating the anniversary of the day in 1945 when the United Nations Charter entered into force. UN Day, celebrated every year, offers the opportunity to amplify our common agenda and reaffirm the purposes and principles of the UN Charter that have guided us for the past 76 years. This is a moment where we honor the past and present leaders, representatives, ambassadors of the UN, and we remember the NGOs and civil society movements that have been related with the United Nations. As mentioned earlier, I am one of the Global Council trustees and youth ambassadors for the United Religions Initiative, URI, which has a consultative status with the United Nations Economic and Social Council. And now the World Yoga Community also has become a member of the ECOSOC. Congratulations to all the members of the WIC. My experience for the past years with the UN, has been through URI, and discussing about partnerships, it starts from URI itself, because URI has our dear Monica Willard and Missy Halu, who are our URI representatives at the UN. And the amazing work that they do by providing us insights from the UN and the opportunities for the global URI family to work closely with the United Nations is a critical example of how, as NGOs, as partners, we can work and increase the partnership with the United Nations. The UN is indispensable as a forum for building a better world and solving complex and evolving challenges. It brings together countries and different actors to take concerted action across the global community to make a positive difference. When we mention UN, the responsibility on us as the civil society is enormous, as the global citizens have to take in consideration everything that is happening around us, including environmental issues to the highest nuclear weapons issues as well. So the United Nations is inviting us to be part of this, to take partnerships to the next level. As we witnessed in the 76th General Assembly last month, to hear the world leaders, the general debates, the high-level meetings, all these are accessible to us, to the civil society as of now, and it will continue to be accessible, and the space will increase much wider in the coming few days. So we must evaluate, if we are using these opportunities in the right way. We have many guests here today who are perfect examples of the volunteering time and the resources that UN is providing us, and as NGOs, how we are utilizing it. I would like to, just go through different examples as partners, how we can contribute to this, one by one. One is by getting the news out. If we are an organization or an individual, covering the UN activities around the world, the strategic communications, newsletters, everything's are valuable materials for us to share within our circles. Second thing to involve in partnership is spotlighting the issues, focusing on the UN priorities and expressing them to the people around the world. Third would be building partnerships, from NGOs and academic communities. Engaging the public is another factor. Sharing the knowledge, as what we are doing here. The panel that we are having is sharing the knowledge, and is a perfect example. And working with the media, as our panelists mentioned, social media platforms are an example for the great work that partners and NGOs are doing for United Nations and with United Nations. So let me conclude, by saying there is no specific time or place or qualification for us to be ambassadors of peace. Like mentioned by profession, I am a network engineer, but I still do my part as a global citizen contributing to the culture of peace. And I am proud to be connected, with young peace builders all around the world to collaborate and share these initiatives. So I encourage you to recognize the opportunities, to channel our potential for the right course and to act accordingly. So once again, my heartfelt thanks to dear Guru Dileepji, Denise, and the WIC committee for giving me this wonderful opportunity. In this moment of virtual observance of the United Nations Day, let us pledge to be bridge builders, peace multipliers, and good partners, and hence shape peace together. So happy UN Day. May peace prevail on Mother Earth. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Isaac. It looks to me like we are only going to have one round of questions for our panelists today, because I know how difficult it is really to respond to something only with 3 minutes. So I think that the way forward for our next few speakers is to really be laser focused on the message that you'd like to give, because it doesn't seem like we'll have a second go around. So having said that, I'd like to turn over the floor now to Monica Singh. The floor is yours. Monica, are you with us?
Yes, you guys cannot hear me?
Now I can. Please,
Okay,
the floor
I'm so
is
sorry.
yours. Yep, perfect.
Thank you, Denise, for having me today. It's such an honor to meet you all again. Hi, Aishu. Hello, Minnie. Nice to be acquainted to Guruji and Sir Ramu. Today, I just wanted to highlight how UN has emphasized my personal life, not just as a person who came up with an resilience story, but also my life to be a philanthropist. I would like to give a full 100% credit to UN, because when I came to United States to do my master's in fashion marketing, I got an opportunity to be at the space where all the world leaders and dignitaries come together and plan the future for the world. and really astound me with an idea that how we all can have a capacity on our own to contribute towards the society in our own way. By education, I'm in the fashion industry, and by passion and choice, I'm a philanthropist where I'm running my nonprofit, my Instinct Foundation, for last 5 years, with doing as much as I can to follow all the sustainable development goals. Out of 17, I think I'm following 12 to 13 right now. So UN is definitely a safe space for all the international people to come together, because whenever we come to the new country, new place, we always have this fear for introduce ourselves to represent our country as well. But then UN is a space where I think it's a more global platform where you got to meet two people with the same like mind, same ideology, same mission and passion on the same space. So UN has the power of bringing the world together and also putting a light on the very important issue as well. And my whatever the support, wherever I spoke, and like Aishu mentioned, in 2016 I represented UN Women for Violence Against Women, and then I represent everyone here. I represent women from all over the world. For me, if UN has the opportunity, they always provide opportunity where I can speak out on behalf of every woman who can speak or who cannot speak from every sort of background, every sort of industry. I always dare to lend my voice and to share the stage with other dignitaries as well. So what I see as per the question in 5 years of the plan, I recently, last year during the pandemic, we all know that we were trying to struggle to survive, not just to deal with the pandemic, but I was continuing to grow myself and my mental health. I was working to bring peace in my mind and how I can contribute yet again within a society through my education in fashion. So I collaborated with my bag collection with Feed brand, which is founded by Lauren Bush. And we both came up with the idea of creating a fashion bag lines collection for a limited period of time, where we were adamant to provide work, economical growth, and then all sort of artisans to create something together and to protect people, to send money and support to younger kids for the education through my foundation. And also we supported no hunger sustainable goal through the World Food Bank as well. So through this partnership, which came in my life, and that's what I'm continuing to grow, incorporating my philanthropic ideas and strategy and using my fashion industry knowledge of 15 years to combine and bring as much as peace in every power, in every sense together. And I wish that UN also provide more and more space for us to continue to get inspired to work on this. And the people who are already done some work and they're continue to working behind the stage right now, I wish that UN also help them to give the platform so that their work get highlighted and then everybody get to know, because UN is a platform where people come for the inspiration as well, not just all about like we are talking about one project. And let's be the force where we can inspire the younger generation. Like Aishu, I met her when she was really young. She joined the UN recently, I think that time. And how amazing is it, like how the youth is taking the UN platform in an advanced level now. So I trust, I want to thank UN, which always provide a platform for all age group and gender all together. They have no boundaries of age, they have no boundaries of genders, and that is the brilliance of UN. And I want to celebrate UN Day with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Monica. I think one of the things that you talked about was UN Women, and there's so much change going on, but there's also change in UN Women too. We have a new executive director. So when we talk about having this kind of change, there is ripe for new initiatives to come to the fore. You know, sometimes we need this kind of change to happen in order to be more creative and in order to have some sort of open mind that, hey, let's see what else can happen in addition to what we've been doing. What else is possible? So I think that there could be a lot of this newness not only in UN Women, but in the UN because of everything that's happened in the last year and a half. But I just bring that up because you specifically mentioned UN Women. And for those who don't know, Phumzile has, stepped down. Her term did end. And we have a new executive director. And again, change is good because we can have new opportunities and new solutions that may not have been thought of before. So I'd like to bring in our next panel leader who is doing a lot of work in a different issue. So without further ado, Johanna, the floor is yours.
Thank you everyone for having me, and happy UN Day to everyone. For me, Hawa just put it so eloquently and passionately as always. The beauty and the magic of the United Nations comes from its principles and the value and the fact that the United Nations belong to every people all around the world. Yet there are enough people all around the world that do not feel like this is the case. They do not see how the United Nations positively impacts their life, or that do not feel like they can easily access the United Nations. So I want to focus my intervention on 3 hopes for partnerships that I would see possibly catering to this point of making the United Nations more accessible to people all around the world. So firstly, whenever we have overcome the COVID-19 pandemic, hopefully soon, and we're back to in-person, I would like to, within the next 5 years, see an in-person UN civil society conference held outside of the UN headquarters, outside of our New York bubble, and ideally in Africa, to highlight the immense importance of African communities and African leadership and all of the potential, especially of young people that we have from Africa, not only on topics like climate change, but more broadly. And this is something that I know Hawa is also championing and is very dear to her heart. So I would love to see that happen. And I do think the civil society can really help in partnership in making that possible. The second part is something that came up during the UN Youth Climate Summit recently at COP26, where we talked about the fact that a lot of documents are really not accessible, and resources from the United Nations are not accessible to young people all around the world, but also to the most marginalized and vulnerable groups, because they might be translated into different languages, but they are not translated into local languages and dialects. So I think that's an area where we as civil society can definitely lend a hand, reach out to the United Nations, and ensure that we're translating these documents so everyone can participate and everyone knows what the United Nations is doing to improve their lives. And then thirdly, my last point has to be on ensuring real and meaningful youth participation in the United Nations space. On one hand, that is working together with UN departments to setting up a UN youth steering committee, such as the one that the DGC already champions. But on the other hand, that means ending the practice of unpaid internships at the United Nations to ensure that the young people that get to work and enjoy and sort of experience the United Nations are the most talented ones and not only the most privileged ones. Thank you.
Thank you so much for those practical, concrete examples of the way to move forward. And again, for bringing us back to we the people, because that's what the UN is really about. If we look at the foundational documents of the United Nations, we know, those of us who have been involved in UN work for decades, we know that it's we the peoples. So we have one other official panel member, and I am so happy that he's joining us. So Rinor, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Monica. I really appreciate. I'm sorry, Denise. I really appreciate it.
Honored to be called Monica. If you're referring to Monica Willard, I am so honored to be called her. Believe me, she's such a mentor and an example and a leader to so many of us. So no worries.
Well, I extend my love to Monica as well. Monica Willard.
I'm getting a free promotion right now.
Oh, Oh, thank you. Well, hello, everyone. It is an honor to be here among fellow youth panelists and with everyone here. For me, partnership is an essential component in which the United Nations stands upon and incorporates. UN Sustainable Development Goal 17 highlights the need to strengthen the means of implementation and revitalize the global partnership for sustainable development. Fundamentally, partnership here is spoken of within the context of sectors and stakeholders. However, youth must also be seen as essential stakeholders within these processes. This is essential in furthering the impact of the UN and the youth agenda. More sustainable partnerships within and with the UN can occur when youth are seen, valued, and included to help guide conversation and implementation forward. This must occur also on several levels of the UN structure. Sometimes many feel that the timing is not right or that others are not ready for this integration. However, the pandemic has shown us their important role in society and the impact that it has had on them. According to UNICEF, in 2020, there were over 1.5 billion school children who were affected by school closures at the peak of nationwide lockdowns. This is really just one major way in which youth have been affected, and it's vital to hear from those who have experienced this when it comes to decision-making processes. If international and national policy and legislation is being made that has an impact on youth, then youth must be part of those discussions and processes as well. Within the next 5 years, I hope to see more youth appointed to roles of responsibility. And this is one way in which they can help bridge the intergenerational divide among generations within the UN. In addition to my work at Pathways to Peace and the international campaign to abolish nuclear weapons, the 2017 Nobel Peace Prize winner, I've noticed some ways in which the UN has become, I would say, more inclusive of youth involvement and participation. In his 2018 Agenda for Disarmament, UN Secretary General Guterres highlighted youth as a force for change in the world and when it comes to nuclear disarmament. As a result, he committed the UN Office of Disarmament Affairs to provide a platform for more youth engagement and active participation. Furthermore, the Youth for Disarmament Initiative was created to provide opportunities to join conferences, share new ideas and updates on their advocacy work, and to learn from credible experts in the field. This is exactly a clear example of how youth can help further our collective work together. I look forward to seeing more opportunities really for youth inclusion and participation within the NGO and UN community. I really would like to thank Dileep, the World Yoga community, and all the organizers of today's conference for really giving youth a platform through our panel together. Thank you.
Well, what you said about being seen, about being heard, about actively participating and having that ability to really feel empowered to make change and to feel valued, that their opinion to make change matters, is, I think, at the core of what we're talking about today. When we talk about the UN, this is what we're hoping that every single person around the globe feels, that they matter, that they are people who really make a difference in the world and that they count. So, you know, my years of experience of chairing the Children's Rights Committee for the state of New York really has allowed me to see that it's not just about us older people knowing what's good for those babies or those younger people, because I think all of you have eloquently stated how you have been making change, how you are on the journey and the continuation of that journey to make change. We heard through negotiating documents, right? Through speaking in high-level UN meetings, through philanthropy, through education, through putting together projects, practical projects like the feed bag that has helped so many people and really created a change in their life on the ground. So this is just a snapshot, I think, of what has been happened that has been very positive. And to hear, that couldn't it be even more effective to include youth in more positions of power in the UN system, in the organization as a whole, and in the greater community, right? That is the way that we would like to move forward. That makes a lot of sense, and that only brings us together in greater unity and in greater inclusion. So I do see someone here who I'd like just to say hello so that she can just say her name, where she lives, and what she's working on, because both Dileep and I are friends with her on Facebook, and we appreciate her joining us today. So I am going to ask you, Bhumika, if you can unmute just to introduce yourself and let us know where you're joining us from so that we can include you today with us as another youth member.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Happy UN Day. I am Bhumika Devi, and I am founder president of Climate 2030 Foundation and Voice of Mother Earth News and Peace on Earth. I am working on climate. I am working on children rights and education and peace. And I'm 12 years old, and I'm working since I'm 9 years old, and it's honor to me join this meeting, and thank you so much.
Where are you living?
I'm from Hyderabad, Pakistan, but I'm in Dallas, Texas now.
All right, there you go. So thank you so much for joining us today. We're so glad that you brought your presence and for letting us know a little bit about you. So thank you to our wonderful panel today. I want to thank people joining from the UK, people joining from, of course, Doha, and everyone who's been with us in New York. We so appreciate it and look forward to staying in touch and continuing our partnership and building on our cooperation. Happy UN Day.
Thank you, Denise. You orchestrated the youth panel very well, as usual. And thank you, dear youth. You were amazing. And Bhumika, welcome. I am originally from Hyderabad, so it's nice to meet another Hyderabadi, even though you live in Texas and I live in New York. Thank you again. And now I'm going to give it over to Dileepji because he has an important announcement.
Thank you, Lauren Dennis Cotto and Dr. Padmini Murthy ji, moderating this two wonderful panel. I'm so thrilled to hear all the youth and speeches from Ramu Damodaran ji and Hawa Diallo ji. We are giving her a G special. we want to bring her to India, because India is waiting for it. So here we want to honor those who really did work for the global community. That is, one is our Ramuji. This appreciation award in recognition of Shri Ramu Damodaran's commitment and dedication in promoting the mission and vision of the United Nations service. We thank you for your support to the NGO communities worldwide in advancing their missions. Presented on Sunday, October 24, 2021, on the occasion of 76th anniversary of the United Nations, signed by the Global Chairman of the World Youth Community. Our next person is no one else, that is our Hawaji, our special honor. Oh, what happened? Let me see. Hawa, okay, that's good. Still is coming. Why is Hawa is hiding there? Let me see.
Hawaji can't live up to Ramu. That's what the problem is.
That is appreciation award in recognition of Ms. Hawa Diallo's commitment and dedication in promoting the vision of the United Nations service. We thank you for your support to the NGO communities worldwide in advancing the missions presented on Sunday, October 24, 2021, on the occasion of 76th anniversary of the United Nations signed by the global chairman from the earlier community. You know, I'm so glad we made this one, even though it is a Sunday. UN for the people, by the people. I believe spirituality should be included in the goals of the United Nations. That bring the values of human race. We may born on this earth from different countries or a culture or language or a color. Actually, we are a blessed being born on this earth as a divine soul. This is the part we have to work on it. The 18th goal should be a spirituality. Not I'm talking about religion, spirituality. That already exists when we born, before we born, after our life too. So we are made of 5 elements on this universe, and universe is within us. That's where all the great masters say, when you want to find peace, you look yourself. Bring the super consciousness state. I'm not a preacher to bring a religion here. I want to see how we can live in a peaceful manner around the globe. Look at some problems going on in the eastern part of the world. So many countries are invading. Nobody can make a peaceful way of living there, especially for women. They're suppressing. It's not true. They're not good for the world. So we had to equally treat even children, women, those who need help. That's the part we work for it. So I hope we all can work and make a better place on this earth within few years. Don't wait for 30, because we may not have enough time to breathe. That's a problem going on now. So I hope we'll make a beautiful movement through our NGOs and diplomats and the missions through our general public. Here I want to bring a dance from Nepal. She performed in our one of the group. We have golden talents group. Those who got first prize or winner of the national level, state level, or university level, we have a group. Over 6,500 people are in our group. That came from Kerala. Now we want to expand. I'm going to play that one. Let me see.
So everybody, after this, we will be ending the program. Thank you so much on behalf of Denise, Dileepji, myself, and the rest of the organizers. This couldn't have been done without you. And Ramu and Hawa, so well deserved, you will get your awards. So it's just not a cyber award. I just wanted to assure both of you that you will get your awards. Thank you.
Let me see. Thank you, everyone. That was a wonderful celebration and beautiful dance. You know, we try to include people from different parts of the world. So I hope you had a wonderful and happy International 76 UN Day celebration. So see you all very soon. Again, thank you all the speakers, our panelists, our sponsors, partners, all the NGOs, committees, and the board members of all the organization, and those who are watching on the Facebook. We have over 1,000 people are watching from different countries. You are making us famous. We make a better place very soon. Thank you everyone. Appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Stay well.
everybody. Bye-bye. Keep
Thank you,
safe.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Happy UN Day.
Om Shanti. May
Om
peace
Shanti.
prevail on
Thank
earth.
you. Happy UN Day.
Happy UN Day.
Happy UN Day. Love and joy.
Thank you.
Vishal, thank you. Inamori, thank you. Bosare, thank you. And our members from the Argentina committee, all the board members from Argentina World Yoga community, they are also here. I hope they didn't get bored because of the language difference, but your spirit I acknowledge. Thank you, Mirta and Veronica, and who else there? I know a few other people were there, and Sajid also here from California, our board member. And Gabriel is here, Anba is here, Raju is here. That's great. Maria Belen also here.
Thank you, Rushi. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You say in Spanish. They can hear your language too, right?